The past few years have seen some of the largest capital investments in North American skiing history, and for the 2025-2026 season, the trend is continuing. This past summer, more than 70 ski areas spearheaded some sort of investment to their slopes, lodges, lifts, and many other aspects of the resort experience. And one particular region is having its biggest investment season in over 4 decades, with the introduction of over 80 new trails, 10 new or refurbished lifts, and a half dozen new lodges. But not all investments are created equal. So which ones are solely just nice to have? And which ones actually have the potential to be true game changers? Well, in this video, we'll go through the scheduled upgrades at each major North American mountain for the 2025-2026 season, and we'll go through the implications if you're planning a trip there. We'll tier each suite of improvements into 4 different categories: minor investments, or smaller scale changes that aren't intended to have a huge front-facing experience impact; noteworthy investments, or important changes that aren't the most prominent, that have the potential to bring noticeable experience improvements; substantial investments, or changes that we expect most guests to prominently notice; and game-changing investments, or changes that will not only be noticed, but have the potential to expand the resort's appeal to a meaningful new clientele. And on that region with an unprecedented investment kick, we're actually running a trip there this March so you can experience that for yourself, but more on that at the end of the video. With that all being said, let's jump right into it. Before we jump into specific projects, we want to highlight a few general upgrade initiatives that have made their way to dozens of resorts across the continent. A large chunk of the North American ski scene has announced investments in snowmaking, new grooming equipment, minor lift refurbishments, and trail and glade clearing for the upcoming season. It's also possible that others are continuing to invest in these areas in an under-the-radar fashion. In addition, Vail Resorts in particular is continuing improvements to its MyEpic app. The company will now connect people directly to ski school services at Vail, Beaver Creek, Keystone, and Breckenridge. Next up, we can move on to a few small-scale investments that may be low-key, but are still worth calling out individually. First up, we have Bear Valley. This mid-sized California resort is getting some changes to its parking shuttle system, which should make getting to the base area more efficient from its long and narrow parking lot. In addition, some changes are being made to the base lodge, with new lockers, new seating, a new roof, and a new paint job. That said, the existing lodge is already a bit small for the demand of the ski area, so we're not sure if this specific improvement will be enough to fully fix that issue. Next up, we have Brian Head, located in southwest Utah. This mid-sized ski area will be adding some beginner-focused glades on its beginner and intermediate-focused Navajo Mountain, as well as expanding its snowmaking there. The ski resort is also upgrading its fleet of rental equipment and resources for ski patrol, as well as debuting an updated terrain park. Heading north to Utah's Wasatch Range, we come to Brighton, one of the snowiest resorts in the country. After the somewhat disappointing debut of its Mid-Mountain Snake Creek Lodge a few years ago, the resort is making some efforts to improve its on-mountain facility experience. First off, the resort is adding some heated gondola cabin seating directly outside the Snake Creek Lodge, and while it's unclear whether the cabins will be open to the public as of right now, if they are, they have the potential to increase the capacity at this relatively small stopping ground. In addition, the resort is adding another mid-mountain cabin called the Holiday House, which promises an additional stopping ground for food and indoor seating. Down at the base, Brighton is adding a slopeside waffle hut called the Waffle House, though, sadly, it won't be open 24 hours a day like its southern-based namesake. Heading across the country to southern Vermont, the relatively under-the-radar Bromley is making some behind-the-scenes changes this winter. In addition to new snowmaking equipment, including a number of high-efficiency guns, the resort is updating on-mountain signage for easier navigation on the mountain. Back over in California, the mid-sized China Peak is making a few changes. Similar to Bear Valley, which shares the same ownership as China Peak, parking shuttles are getting an upgrade, intending to ease the transition from the car to the slopes. In addition, some new food options are opening at the base, including a coffee bar at Sully's Pub and a snack shack at the Base Camp Outdoor Bar. Colorado's Keystone Resort will see a new lodging option at its base, the Kindred Resort. This property will offer more than 100 hotel rooms, dozens of condos, and a number of higher-end restaurants. This won't make a large difference for most guests, but for those looking for a full-service slopeside hotel at this destination Summit County ski area, your options just grew. Located south of Lake Tahoe, Kirkwood is known for its rough-around-the-edges aesthetic. However, every once in a while, everything needs a bit of a touch-up. This year, the Timber Creek Base Lodge has received a new exterior to keep the area looking up to date, although the interior of the lodge remains the same. Back out east, New Hampshire's Loon Mountain has been on a development kick this past few years, and that continues this year with a new surface lift and snowmaking improvements. The new lift will be a short magic carpet called Little Sass, which promises to ease the learning experience for first-time skiers and riders. Loon's snowmaking improvements are largely hidden, consisting of pipe replacements, booster pump improvements, and new hydrants, but these will allow for easier and earlier snowmaking for years to come. Located in southern Oregon, Mount Ashland is in the midst of a multi-year renaissance. It built the new intermediate Lithia lift last year, and the resort is replacing its two longest lifts next year. This year is a bit of a calm between those storms, but the resort is still adding a new trail to the map. The new Bumblebee Trail will provide beginners a new way to lap the Lithia lift, and it's expected to help make this more advanced-focused mountain a little better for those progressing from the Bunny Hill. Up north in Alberta, Canada, Mount Norquay is also making some improvements to the beginner experience. A new beginner carpet is expected to be added, expanding the learning area and improving the experience for first-time skiers and riders. Additionally, some new glades will be cleared around the Mystic Pod, expanding tree skiing opportunities in that area of the resort. Back in the United States, Utah's Powder Mountain is making a huge investment, but almost no one watching this video will have the opportunity to experience it. A new high-speed quad called Primetime will serve multiple new blue trails in the Davenport area. On the surface, this lift seems like it should be a pretty big deal. However, access will be reserved exclusively for homeowners on the new Powder Mountain Powder Haven development, so only a select few will ever get to experience the newly lift-served terrain here. For the general public, the biggest improvement will arguably be the new Quattro product, which offers 4 days of flexible skiing and riding at the resort except on the pass holder only February weekends. Now that Powder Mountain isn't on any multi-resort mega passes, this is finally a way to save a bit of money on peak time lift tickets at the resort. Although at $599 for adults, it's still not cheap by any means. The resort also plans to expand evening lesson availability this winter. It's worth noting that the DMI Zone lift, which was originally planned to bring 900 acres of new public terrain this winter, has been pushed back at least another season. Back in the South Tahoe region, Sierra-at-Tahoe is making some minor adjustments to its trail network that should make getting around a little easier. The resort is adding 2 new blue trails, Pika and Skipper, that should provide a second route from the top of the Easy Rider lift to the bottom of the West Bowl area, and notably, this route is expected to be a little bit less flat than the existing Marmot Trail. The resort is also expected to open additional Bunny Hill terrain near the base and expand its terrain park builds on the Aspens and Upper Main runs. Back in Utah, Big Cottonwood Canyon's Solitude ski area is making some upgrades to help both with too little snow and too much snow. They're investing in their snowmaking system, replacing some underground pipes. This is probably going to be hard to notice while you're on the slopes, but it's expected to ensure resilient terrain operations for the years to come. The resort is also investing in 4 new Wyson towers in Honeycomb Canyon, which is expected to help with avalanche mitigation in this expert-oriented area. These towers join 4 other existing ones, and hopefully they'll help Solitude bounce back from the deteriorating operational reliability the resort has seen in the past few years on its advanced and expert level terrain. Back east over in Vermont, Stratton is making a few improvements to keep lifts running. One is a modernization of the internal parts of the American Express 6-pack, which, despite the lift getting a bit older, should keep it in good shape to run for the years to come. Another improvement is the extension of the wind fence adjacent to the summit gondola. This should allow the gondola to run in higher winds, although only time will tell if that's actually the case. Back in the Tahoe region, North Tahoe's Sugar Bowl is making some base area changes. One of those is adding some new lockers to be located below the Village Lodge deck in what's billed by the resort as a state-of-the-art locker facility. And speaking of this lodge deck, that space has been expanded for more seating, making it easier to enjoy those sunny Tahoe days. Back over in Vermont again, Sugarbush is improving the beginner experience on the Mount Ellen side of the resort. The resort has installed a new covered beginner carpet called Easy Up, making for a much easier beginner experience than the outgoing Tommy's Toe, and one that's isolated from the elements as well. This will be the first carpet lift on the Mount Ellen side of the resort, so it's entirely possible that it'll pull some first-time skiers and riders from the main Lincoln Peak side over to Mount Ellen. Moving a bit north in the state, Northern Vermont's Stowe is giving its Midway Lodge a full refresh this winter. The resort is adding an expanded porch, redoing the interior, and rebranding the whole space as the new Tower 5 bar. The upgrade is aimed specifically at enhancing the operating experience at this lodge, which is located a few hundred feet up from the gondola base terminal. Although given its location significantly higher than the base proper, it remains to be seen how effective this project actually is. Moving back to Western Canada and British Columbia, Sun Peaks is trying some new ideas this year to improve resiliency and early season coverage. This past off-season, they've been utilizing a finished snow storage system to ensure slope coverage on opening day, storing about 14,000 cubic meters of snow under what are essentially massive thick blankets. That will largely be utilized for coverage on their race slopes, but it could be a bellwether for how ski areas can open earlier and more consistently in the coming years. Other improvements this year include snowmaking enhancements, new groomer machines, building accessibility improvements, and new kids' adventure zones. Back below the border, Idaho's Sun Valley is continuing some forest health projects through forest glading, this time focused on areas around the Lookout Express chair. These will continue to expand tree skiing for advanced and expert skiers and riders, although Sun Valley's modest natural snowfall means prime days to explore these areas may be somewhat limited. Sticking in Idaho, the state's Tamarack resort is making the best of a tough situation. This past summer, the resort just barely avoided being overrun by the rock fire, and this ended up clearing some trees from right along the south boundary of the ski area. The damaged land will be utilized to create some new runs south of the popular Bliss Trail, with the new terrain being advertised as a 60-acre expansion of skiable terrain, though this terrain has been previously skiable as an advanced glade area. Outside of fire-related investments, Tamarack has widened the Green Circle Waltz Trail, working to improve the beginner experience there. In addition, certain ski lift loading and unloading ramps have been rebuilt, and an old snowcat has been repurposed as a mobile DJ, allowing for a unique opportunity for pop-up opera across the mountain. Finally, Tamarack has also added a number of parking options, expanding both the upper and lower village lots, as well as adding a large lot called Aspen a bit further away from the base. First up for noteworthy improvements is Washington State's Alpental, which is technically part of the larger Summit at Snoqualmie complex. Here, the iconic Edelweiss chair, a fixed grip double dating all the way back to 1967, will be replaced with a new fixed grip triple. This new chair will keep the same alignment, ride time, and iconic top station as the outgoing lift, but it'll provide a substantial uphill capacity increase to this incredibly popular zone. Lines for the old chair could regularly reach well over half an hour, and although the international chairlift installation last year substantially helped with the lines, they were still somewhat of an issue, and they'll probably always be given the resort's very close proximity to Seattle. But hopefully this year, given the slight capacity increase, we'll see even better crowd flow in Alpental's upper mountain. Moving down to Utah's Little Cottonwood Canyon, we come to the iconic Alta ski area. And this year, despite only being installed 8 years ago, the Supreme lift is getting rebuilt, with the main change being taking out the interesting bend in the middle. That bend was originally put in to use the same lift line as the old Supreme and Secret lifts and avoid tree removal, but the bend made for an incredibly bumpy few seconds of riding, and perhaps more importantly, caused the lift to wear much quicker than it should have given its age. The overall experience for skiers will be mostly unchanged with this project, though you may notice your teeth rattling less on your way up. Elsewhere at the resort, another project is underway at the Albion Base Lodge, which is midway through a 2-year expansion. This may result in a few aesthetic changes for this winter, although construction will be halted over the winter and the lodge will be operating as usual. Other projects include a rebuilt snowmaking line, the addition of a few avalanche towers on Devil's Castle and Sugarloaf Peak, and some improvements along the iconic High Traverse in order to make that traverse more reliable when snowfall may not be as consistent. Next up, we stay in Utah and move to the longest continuously family-owned ski area in the country, Beaver Mountain. This modestly sized resort is getting a new base lodge this winter, adding new food and retail options as well as a new ski school space. The current food service lodge isn't permanently disappearing, but it's going to be closed for renovation starting this year. Back out east, New Hampshire's Bretton Woods is making a big lift investment, replacing its Bethlehem Express high-speed quad with a new high-speed quad in the same alignment. The outgoing lift was over 35 years old, and the new lift is expected to slightly improve crowd flow thanks to a revamped loading maze several feet uphill from the current one, as well as a smoothed out unloading area more suitable for less experienced guests. Elsewhere at the resort, a new glade trail will open up near the Rosebrook Lodge, expanding options for advanced skiers and riders looking for some trees. Washington State's Crystal Mountain is making a significant investment in the resort, though its palpable impact on the slopes will likely be minimal. The popular Rainier Express quad will be replaced with a new high-speed quad with a similar uphill capacity. The main reason for this replacement is that the outgoing Rainier Express is 37 years old, and according to the resort, there isn't enough room at the top terminal to upgrade to a larger lift such as a 6-pack. At New York State's Gore Mountain, a few notable upgrades are happening across the footprint. For one, the top ridge triple chair is being replaced with a new fixed grip quad, increasing uphill capacity over there. This new chair will also feature a loading carpet, though the new lift will still have a nearly 10-minute ride. Elsewhere at the resort, the North Creek Ski Bowl base area is getting a new and expanded lodge, making for a new place to stop to warm up, rent equipment, or get some food, and perhaps most notably, leading to an environment in which the ski bowl section of the resort will finally be open for skiing and riding 7 days a week. Additionally, snowmaking and minor lift modernization projects are also ongoing, mainly to keep up with maintenance. Finally, a new parking area will open below Lot G, opening up another 375 parking spaces. Moving a bit east to Vermont, the East Coast's largest ski area is continuing to improve this season, even as it moves from corporate to independent ownership. Killington will see multiple projects opening this year, including a new lift, enhanced snowmaking, and new gondola cabins. First off, the iconic Superstar Express quad, which serves some of Killington's notorious mogul runs and latest open spring terrain, has been replaced with a new high-speed 6-pack, which should provide a more speedy, reliable, and wind-resilient ride than the outgoing 38-year-old lift. For snowmaking, Killington is installing over 1,000 new snowmaking guns over this year and next, making for one of the biggest snowmaking investments we've ever seen over such a small period of time. This includes some new guns on the Superstar Trail, which, as many of you watching this video probably know, sees snowmaking happen as long as possible to build an incredibly deep snowpack and allow for skiing and riding as late as June in the best years. Elsewhere on the mountain, Killington is also replacing all the gondola cabins on its Skyship gondola, as well as upgrading the associated cabin storage barn. This should make for a more comfortable ride on this incredibly long 2-stage lift. A few other smaller projects are going on as well, such as the replacement of a beginner carpet on Snowshed, the opening of the Ledgewood Yurt for on-mountain dining, 5 new snowcats, a new snowplow, and new investments in on-mountain lodging around the Snowshed and Ram's Head base areas, though that last project is independent from Killington itself. Overall, what many would consider Vermont's best ski area is continuing to invest and keep itself on top of the Green Mountain ski scene. Located way up on the literal Continental Divide, Colorado's Loveland ski area is making a few notable improvements to its beginner experience. First off, the resort is replacing its Chair 7 double lift with a so-called triple. It technically has quad carriers, but the resort is only planning to operate it to allow 3 people per chair. Chair 7 is located in the Loveland Valley area of the resort, which is discontinuous from the larger Loveland Basin and mainly focused on beginner and intermediate terrain. This replacement will increase capacity in this Bunny Hill area by around 50%, and it's expected to make for a comfortable ride given the extra seating that riders will be able to spread out onto. The Zigzag Trail, also in Loveland Valley, has been regraded and reshaped, making for an easier experience for beginners on this green trail. Together, these should make for better progression for those learning to ski or ride at the relatively affordable Loveland. We have no doubt the improvements will help it remain a family favorite in the competitive Front Range ski scene. Up north in the Midwest, Lutsen is making a number of small improvements. Most importantly is the rebuilding of the Papa Charlie's restaurant, which was destroyed in a fire in 2023. The new restaurant will now be called Charlie's Alpine Bistro and will provide a modern option for food and operate at Lutsen's main base. In addition, Lutsen has commissioned a new trail map from Vista Maps. Lutsen's old map was one of the worst in the industry, and this new map is miles better, being much simpler and clearer than the old one. Sticking to the Midwest and going just across Lake Superior, we come to Michigan's Mount Bohemia, which is making a few base and on-mountain upgrades this season. First off is a new rooftop bar at the base, which will be tiki themed and should provide great views of the front side slopes. In addition, a new hot springs mineral pool has been added to the Nordic Spa. On the mountain, 4 new glade runs have been cleared, and some existing expert glades have been cleared of some smaller vegetation. Moving back to the Little Cottonwood Canyon of Utah, we have our next resort, Snowbird, which is opening a new on-mountain restaurant called The Nest, located near the top of the Mid-Gad Lift. This rebranded lodge had been closed this past year, and with its reopening, you can now stop by for a quick bite or warm up in the Gad Valley area without heading all the way down to the base. The resort has also invested in some new avalanche and snowmaking equipment for the upcoming season. Just south of Snowbird is our next resort, Sundance. This small Utah resort is embarking on a multi-year expansion and will get a new lift next year. But this year, some new terrain will still come online. About 60 acres of new terrain will open to this year's right of the Vertigo Run. This will also provide some new advanced and expert glade skiing opportunities, something Sundance lacks a little bit compared to the rest of the Utah competition. Additionally, the current Far East Ridge Run will be extended to provide a new egress route and be downrated to a blue. The Pipeline Run in Bishop's Bowl is expected to see a similar downrating as well, and we're expecting to see some smoothing out of the terrain as a result. Moving over to Colorado, the locally oriented Sunlight Ski Resort is making its biggest set of investments in a single year since it opened. The resort is making 2 lift upgrades, replacing its Primo and Segundo double lifts with a quad and a triple, respectively. The lifts will run in essentially the same alignment as the old lifts, and we don't expect noticeable speed changes, but the new lifts should provide reliable operations for the decades to come. Down in New Mexico, Taos Ski Valley is also making a few improvements focused on keeping the mountain running as smoothly as possible in the coming years. One of these is the replacement of Chair 7, a fixed grip triple, with a new lift of the same type. While it may seem like a confusing choice to replace a chair with the exact same capacity and speed as the old one, Chair 7 really isn't long enough for a high-speed lift to make sense, and capacity has never really been an issue in this area of the mountain. Ultimately, this is really another life cycle-based replacement. In addition to the lift replacement, Taos has regraded the Maxi Trail in order to make for a better skiing and riding experience, and the resort has also added RFID gates to a few of the main lifts. Back east in New Hampshire, we come to Waterville Valley, a ski area that's very closely linked with ski racing, and is expected to continue that association with this year's capital improvements. A new T-bar will run up the lower Whitecaps run, largely serving ski racing and terrain park users, but it'll be open to the general public as well. This lift indirectly replaces the World Cup and exhibition surface lifts, but it's expected to run in a much longer alignment than those two, allowing for longer race training runs and more extensive terrain park laps. Next up, we head back west to Washington State's White Pass, where the Chair 4 double chair is getting replaced with a fixed grip quad. The replacement is largely due to capacity and the age of the lift, and the ride time will remain the same. However, the biggest benefit is that the uphill capacity will about double, but this pot of runs has always been fairly quiet, and we expect that to remain in the coming years. Elsewhere at White Pass, a new base lodge is under construction near the base of the Far East Lift, though this project won't be completed until next season. Finally, we move back east to Whiteface in the Adirondacks of New York State. Here, the little Whiteface fixed grip double chair has been replaced with a fixed grip double chair. That's not very common in today's world. However, this lift isn't just replacing Little Whiteface, it's also taking over the role of the Mountain Run double chair that neighbored the bottom half of it. As a result, the new chairlift will have a mid-station where the Mountain Run chair unloaded. It's very clear this is a life cycle oriented upgrade, and with the resort's gondolas serving much of the same terrain, it seems the resort is intent on just keeping the Little Whiteface chair as a helper lift in nature. Whiteface is also investing in snowmaking, putting in over 100 new snowmaking guns this year, many of which will be on the Hoyt's High Run, ensuring the south-facing run will have adequate coverage. And finally, Whiteface is also adding a new Snowcat to its fleet. Kicking off the substantial upgrades is New Mexico's Angel Fire, which is adding a brand new lift in a new alignment this winter. The resort's backside is getting some help with the new Race Rider fixed grip quad, which will provide the most direct lift access to the aptly named Steeps area in nearly 3 decades. This lift will also provide a secondary route out from the backside, connecting directly to the terrain park lift, and as a result, it's expected to provide welcome redundancy to the Southwest Flyer lift despite being slower. In addition, the new lift is being paired with 7 new named trails and glades, including 2 blues, 3 blacks, and the resort's first ever double black diamond runs, the latter 2 of which are both expected to be directly served by the new quad. Next up, we move to a perennially upgrading mountain, Montana's Big Sky. If all of the upgrades over the past few years happened just in one season, the resort would probably earn its spot in our game-changing section. But the resort has been building out its ambitious master plan little by little, and this year, that upgrade is a new 10-passenger gondola on a new alignment from the Mountain Village base to the base of the Lone Peak tram. The gondola also has a mid-station serving some beginner terrain previously served by the outgoing Explorer double chair. This is expected to make a huge improvement to the beginner experience at this massive resort, providing a fast, heated ride up what used to be a slow fixed grip double line. It will also provide a second high-speed route out from the main base to the Lone Peak side of the resort, potentially offering significant relief to the nearby Swift Current 6 bubble chair. The new gondola will make getting to the Lone Peak terrain even faster than Swift Current, although we do have to mention that the extra tram cost still applies for those accessing Big Sky using an Icon or Mountain Collective Pass. But speaking of the Lone Peak tram, a new attraction is opening up at the top station of the lift. The Kirklift, as Big Sky calls it, is a glass-enclosed and glass-floored observation deck that is open to skiers, riders, and foot traffic. This addition will not only be open in the winter, but is expected to provide a compelling summer destination, as similar attractions such as the Columbia Icefield Skywalk and Grand Canyon Skywalk have been incredibly popular stops when visiting those areas. In summer, visitation in the Gallatin River Valley is already a large market due to the proximity to Yellowstone National Park. Moving up north to the Canadian Rockies, the beautiful Lake Louise ski resort is continuing to make big investments. Last year, the Pipestone Express chair improved access to a bunch of upper mountain runs. And this year, another new high-speed lift is being built, this time on the backside of the mountain, and this time serving a true expansion. The Richardson's Ridge Express Quad will provide expanded terrain for intermediate and beginner skiers with a specialization in gladed terrain. This lift will run across the valley from the Paradise Triple Chair, and it's planned to start from above the Temple Lodge. Notably, you won't be able to access this lift from the Temple Lodge itself, and if you're stopping in for a break, you'll need to ride up the large or ptarmigan lifts before we're heading back to Richardson's Ridge. We imagine this lift could have a significant impact on the overall mountain experience for beginner and intermediate skiers and riders, with a newly compelling mountain pod with incredible views for those who haven't progressed to Black Diamond slopes. However, it is worth noting that the expansion isn't expected to open until quite a bit of the way through the season, with the opening timeline pegged for spring 2026. Back in the US, we head to Park City, the largest ski area in the United States, and home to the only major project at a North American Vail Resort's own ski area this winter. Here, the Sunrise Double on the canyon side of the resort is being replaced with a massive 10-passenger gondola. The new lift will start from the same base near the Hyatt at Canyons Village, but it will extend substantially further up to the Red Pine Lodge, making it a lot easier to access the heart of the canyon's terrain from that part of the base and providing a welcome piece of redundancy out of the canyon's base complex. Around the Red Pine Lodge itself, the learning terrain has been regraded in places to make for a better experience for those sliding on snow for the first time. Additionally, a few thousand feet of snowmaking pipe has been replaced at the resort, hopefully ensuring slopes can remain reliably open when the weather is less than ideal. Just north of Park City, we head over to Snowbasin, which has been making constant lift infrastructure investments, and this year is no exception. For the upcoming season, the resort is replacing the Becker Triple Chair with high-speed quad, making for the third new high-speed lift in the past 5 years. The new Becker lift will halve the ride time of the old chair, taking only 6 minutes in comparison to 12. Although it is worth noting that the capacity of the new lift, which ultimately is fairly redundant to some of the other lifts in Snowbasin's network, will be about the same as the outgoing model. In addition to the lift replacement, Snowbasin is finally adding RFID gates to lifts, making it a lot less annoying to get your pass scanned, especially if you have an Icon or Mountain Collective Pass and you're used to keeping your pass in your pocket at every other resort. Finally, Snowbasin is also doing some regrading and widening of the Bear Hollow run, which is a beginner run off Becker. This will allow for an easier experience for those just graduating from the Little Cat Chair, and it's expected to ease trail congestion on that run. Finally, for this category, we have Snowmass in Colorado, which is replacing not one, but 2 lifts for this season. First up is the Elk Camp Quad, which is being replaced by a 6-pack in the same alignment. This is expected to increase capacity for this popular lift, likely decreasing lines there. But perhaps almost, if not more importantly, the resort is also replacing its Cirque Platter lift, swapping out the existing lift for a T-bar in a slightly adjusted alignment. The new lift will more than triple uphill capacity barring misloads, although the ride time is expected to be slightly longer. We also expect a more reliable operating schedule from the new surface lift, but we'll have to wait until we see what happens this season to know for sure. Snowmass is also seeing some changes to its on-mountain dining this year. The Ullerhof restaurant is currently undergoing a massive renovation, and it's not expected to be done until next year. That does mean that it'll be closed this winter, so for those looking to stop in near the base of the Big Burn Lift, you'll need to look elsewhere. The Elk Camp restaurant will have an 120-seat expansion opening this year, so it'll be a little easier to find a seat over there. In addition, the Spider Savage race area will now have a place serving food, the Hot Dogger. And finally, we move into the game-changing investments, of which we have 3 this year. This season, Colorado's Monarch Mountain is opening the largest terrain expansion in the state with its new Tomichi triple chair serving terrain on the backside of the mountain. Monarch is a small ski area in the crowded Colorado ski scene, but with this nearly 400-acre expansion, it'll push Monarch further up in this competitive market, maybe just on marketing statistics alone. The expansion is officially known as No Name Basin, and it's expected to provide quite a bit of intermediate-focused cut terrain and some new advanced glades, as well as a small warming hut near the lift base that's expected to be home to a few tables for those who bring their own food. While this terrain expansion doesn't have the flashiest new lift or most extreme terrain, it does provide some much-needed room for skiers and riders to spread out on this smaller mountain. While lines were never the largest issue at Monarch, the resort hasn't been the emptiest in recent years either, with race training on Saturdays causing congestion on the front side. This extra dimension makes it a lot easier to find a pot of terrain away from the crowds, something that is getting all too rare in the state of Colorado. Moving over to Western Canada's Castle Mountain, this under-the-radar Alberta ski area is adding its first high-speed lift. And rather than replacing one of its workhorse lifts such as Sundance or Huckleberry, Castle is using this lift to anchor an expansion into new terrain on Mount Haig. The new Stagecoach Express, as it's called, is an especially interesting investment for a number of reasons. For one, the lift they're putting up is the old Angel Express from Banff's Sunshine Village, a lift that was originally built in 1988, making this quote-unquote new lift actually one of the oldest detachable chairlifts on the continent. However, the lift has undergone extensive refurbishments, so the resort is expecting it won't feel like a nearly 40-year-old lift when you ride it. It's also worth noting that given its mid-mountain location, this will be one of only a few detachable chairlifts that you have to first ride a fixed grip chair in order to access. The new terrain access through this lift is expected to largely be intermediate to advanced in nature, with one top-to-bottom green trail as well, though the final trail map has not yet been released. The terrain here was previously used for cat skiing, but that service will end with this lift installation. The update is expected to expand Castle's lift-served skiable acreage by around 25%, and it should make spending time on Mount Haig much more compelling for those looking for intermediate and advanced terrain. But finally, we come to the biggest change at a ski area for this upcoming year, and possibly the biggest one-year change in multiple decades. Deer Valley has been working on what they call the Expanded Excellence Project for a few years now, but they really went all out this year. Over 70 new trails, 6 new lifts, including a 2-stage 10-passenger gondola, and a more complete base area at the East Village, including lodging, rentals, and day skier amenities, are coming for the upcoming winter. Entire mountainsides have been developed for new skiing, including beginner-focused runs on Park Peak, long intermediate and advanced groomers served by the Revelator and Vulcan Express chairs, more easily lappable blue trails via the Galena Express, and some more green and blue terrain near the base served by the Pioche and Neptune Express lifts, which also access some new on-mountain homes. The upper part of this terrain tops out pretty high at 9,350 feet, but it goes down as low as 6,350 feet, which is pretty low for this part of the country. And much of the terrain will heavily utilize new snowmaking infrastructure, as well as new maintenance buildings preparing for the 2,000 acres of new terrain. Last year was the first year that this expansion project started to open, with a handful of new lifts serving some long blue groomers that had fantastic views of the Jordanelle Reservoir. But it was clear that was just the beginning. Some of the runs last year felt disjointed, and trail connections are expected to help make that area feel more complete. But the expansion isn't even complete after this year, as more terrain and lifts will open next year, culminating in almost 3,750 acres of new terrain once the expansion is all said and done. However, and rather controversially, not everyone will be able to enjoy this new terrain. Deer Valley's snowboard ban has been in effect since its creation, and the ban will continue to stay in effect with all this new terrain. Ultimately, this massive expansion will catapult Deer Valley into the upper echelon of ski areas in terms of size. What was originally supposed to be a new ski area has been morphed with the existing Deer Valley to span almost 5,800 acres, adding plenty of beginner through advanced terrain. Lower elevation terrain will be quite susceptible to low snow conditions, but Deer Valley is hoping investments in a massive snowmaking system will mitigate some of these issues. So that's our comprehensive overview of the projects going on in the North American ski scene for the 2025-2026 season. While it may seem all over the place, there are a few general trends we're seeing. For one, the Tahoe and Vermont areas are generally down on improvements for the second year in a row. In fact, no new lifts have been installed at a major Tahoe resort since 2022, when new lifts went in at Palisades Tahoe, Heavenly, Mount Rose, and North Star all in the same year, though that is looking like that'll change next year with gondolas going in at Homewood and Sugar Bowl. In Vermont, only Killington is getting a new lift this year. Interestingly, the same thing happened last year with Sugarbush. On the other hand, Western Canada's Alberta is home to some big improvements, with Castle Mountain and Lake Louise both getting terrain expansions, and Utah is the biggest winner again, with Deer Valley, Park City, and Snowbasin leading the way in big improvements, and all of the Cottonwoods resorts seeing at least some enhancements done as well. Okay, does skiing and riding in Utah this winter sound like a good idea or what? I think you know the answer to that. And that's why you should make sure to sign up for one of the few remaining spots for our PeakHouse Utah trip. The base trip will cover Solitude, Brighton, Snowbird, and Alta, all of which have upgrades this winter, and if you want to join us for an addendum, we'll also be checking out the substantial Becker upgrade at Snowbasin and the staggering 2,000-acre terrain expansion at Deer Valley. And the best part, you don't have to do any of the planning. We'll be covering all transportation including to and from the airport, staying in a huge chalet with a fully stocked kitchen for all meals, and curating a 10 to 15 person group so you have the right gang to ski and ride with. If you want to try out some of the snowiest and newest terrain in the country and you're looking for the people to do it with, PeakHouse Utah is for you. For more information and to get your spot before it's gone, click the link in the description below. If you found this information helpful, be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our content. Special thanks to our Peak patrons, and see you for the next one.